This, then, is our new definition of reading. Up to now, we've tended to think too much of it as being simply related to the print. This has caused difficulties, and now in England there are 2 million adult illiterates, and many, many people who can't make use of even the limited reading skills that they do have. In our tremendously print-oriented society, this causes considerable distress. But why all this difficulty? First, let's look at how children are taught to read in schools.
Good girl. Come round this way. You can see what we're doing. You point to it and listen. Now you read it for her as well.
We use many methods. One of the most popular is the phonic, in which the child is taught the alphabet, then the sounds of the letters, and these are finally blended into words. There's the look-say, in which the child is given a picture with the word underneath it, so that he becomes to associate the picture with the word, and finally to recognize the word on its own. There are new approaches like the ITA, the initial teaching alphabet. This uses different letters, each one connected to each sound in our language. And there are a variety of others using colors, sentences, and blends of all the other methods.
Good. Can you read it for him?
I am young.
Oh, those are lovely. Now, can you put those words back for me? Is he right with this one? You got the right word, John?
No.
No. Can you make it right? Well, come and see if you can then.
No matter how good these traditional methods are, and some of them are very good, they deal only with the first stages of reading, recognition and registration. Once the child has recognized and learnt the symbols, he's left on his own. I am sure you remember this stage. But were you after this taught how to comprehend, how to understand, how to analyze and criticize what you were reading, how to select and reject, how to note, how to retain, how to recall? In other words, most of the problems that people experience are not because of any personal failing, but because the education process stops short. And even in the first two stages, recognition and registration, there's much that we are not taught, especially about our eyes. These two diagrams here show objects being seen from a distance and seen from near. Here, the light comes in at a fairly small angle. The lens does not need to bend much. The rays are directed towards the retina, where the image is received. In this lower one, the angle of light is greater, so the lens has to adjust in order to accommodate that, and then the image is once again received properly on the retina. Now, what is interesting also about these and the lens's ability is not that it can only do it, but that it can do it so rapidly. You can look at something far away and then instantly look at something very close, and you don't go through a blurry period. Your perception is immediate and clear. So the ability of your lens to adjust is quite phenomenal. Looking a bit more closely then at these receivers of light, we find that the eye is in fact the bud of a large optical nerve. Light goes in through the pupil, travels through the transparent lens, and registers the image on the retina, the large area at the back of the eye. The retina contains an enormous number of cones and rods. Cones are those cells which are receptive to color and very clear form. The rods are your night perceptors, I think is perhaps the best way to call them. Your cones are concentrated in an area here called the fovea. This is where most of your sharp color perception takes place. Around the peripheries, are the rods. Now, the rods, as I mentioned, are for your night vision. If, therefore, you're wanting to look at something at night, don't look directly at it, but look slightly away from it, and you will see it more clearly because it will be registered on the rods, not the cones. Now, the total number of rods and cones in one of your eyes is 130 million. There's also an interesting point in your eye here where the optic nerve enters the retina. This is a blind spot. There are no cells there ready to receive images. You can test this blind spot by taking a piece of paper, marking a little X and a little naught about an inch away from each other, and then moving them around with one eye closed, concentrating on one. You'll find that as you move, at a certain place, one of them disappears. That means that you have found the blind spot. Now, because you have two eyes, they cancel each other's blind spots out. Controlling this whole organism, like the reins that control the horse's head, are 8 muscles of the eye. Now, the muscles of your eye do the most extraordinary job. They coordinate the tracking of every image that you ever see, and they also coordinate with each other. So you have, with your eyes, the most enormously complicated system of muscles, nerve cells, light receptor cells, which work in a visual harmony to make sure that you see things clearly and accurately. Now, what's important about the muscles in your eyes is that the muscles direct your eyes to the things that they see, and if they don't, you don't see. So if the image is moving, the muscles direct your lens to move with the image. If the image is still, the muscles keep the lens still. If the image is still and the muscles move the lens, your vision becomes a blur. See what happens when your eye moves without a pause. Now, you probably had a bit of difficulty reading that because of the blur and probably picked up only a few words. But before discussing that, I want to digress with a brief test. I'm going to ask you to remember a list of words that I'm going to read you from this book. A, dog. Ran. A, cross. On. To.